Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding the clock way, way back, over 5,000 years back, to the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia. Forget empires and epic battles for a moment. We're diving deep into the wonderfully mundane world of counting. Specifically, the fine art of counting sheep, literally. And you're not just listening tonight. You are a brand new apprentice accountant in the great city of Uruk, smack dab in the cradle of civilization. Get ready for clay, confusion, and counting. Lots and lots of counting. Honestly, you might not survive the first week, but hey, at least it's a job with benefits, mostly beer. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're thinking about it, drop a comment down below telling me where you're listening from right now and what time it is for you. Is it midnight in Tokyo, dawn in Berlin, mid-afternoon coffee break in Buenos Aires? I love picturing where this little journey is drifting off to. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. The air hits you first. It's thick, hot, and smells like wet earth baking under a relentless sun, mixed with a distant, pungent aroma of animals and something else, something smoky and vaguely industrial. That's the smell of Uruk, the bustling heart of Sumer. You're standing near the edge of the vast temple complex, your new workplace. Your sandals sink slightly into the damp, gray-brown mud of the path. It's not rain mud, it's irrigation mud, the lifeblood of this place, channeled through countless canals from the mighty Euphrates. Around you, the city hums, not with engines, but with human voices calling out, the rhythmic thump of looms and the clatter of pottery, and the distant, constant bleating that is the soundtrack to your new career path, sheep. You clutch a small bundle containing your spare tunic and maybe a clay cup. That's it. Your worldly possessions as you report to duty at the Temple of Inanna's vast storage and administrative complex. Forget air-conditioned offices. Your desk will be outdoors, near the pens, or perhaps under a reed-thatched awaken if you're lucky. The sheer scale is overwhelming. Mud brick buildings rise several stories high, painted with geometric patterns in faded red ochre and white gypsum. Priests in elaborate woolen garments stride past, followed by attendants. Workers haul baskets of grain, dates, and bundles of reeds. It's organized chaos, a symphony of productivity powered by, well, by people like you, meticulously counting things. Your heart pounds, partly from the heat, partly from the sheer unfamiliarity. You feel conspicuously new, a tiny cog dropped into a vast, ancient machine. A stern-looking man with a closely shaved head and a robe that marks him as a senior scribe spots you. His eyes, sharp and assessing, scan you up and down. He carries a small, damp clay tablet in one hand and a sharpened reed stylus tucked behind his ear. This is your mentor, Enum. He doesn't smile. He barely nods. "Apprentice," he grunts. His voice is dry as the dust clinging to the edges of the path. "Follow. Keep quiet. Observe." His command of language seems as economical as the records he'll soon teach you to keep. You scramble after him, your sandals making soft, sucking sounds in the mud. He leads you not into a grand hall, but around the side of a large storage building towards a series of low-walled enclosures. The bleating gets louder, much louder, and the smell intensifies. Warm wool, dung, and animal breath. You see them then, hundreds, maybe thousands of woolly sheep packed into dusty pens. Shepherds lean on staffs watching over their charges. This is your raw data, your inventory. Your reason for being here. Enum gestures dismissively towards the milling sea of wool. Udum, he states flatly. Sheep. Your first official Sumerian word on the job. He points to a stack of damp, gray, rectangular slabs resting in the shade, your future nemesis. Clay tablets. Then he taps the stylus behind his ear. Dubsar, he says. Scribe. That's what you aspire to be. Someone who counts sheep, literally. You take a deep breath of the distinctly unglamorous air. Welcome to the thrilling world of Bronze Age bookkeeping. Your journey into the profoundly boring yet utterly essential life of a Sumerian accountant begins now amidst the dust and the dung and the deafening bleat of responsibility.
Enam pulls you away from the noisy pins, leading you to a slightly quieter corner shaded by the high mud brick wall. A few low reed mats lie on the ground, and a large wooden tub holds damp, gray clay. The smell of the flock still hangs in the air, but the dust is less choking. He gestures for you to sit, the movement economical, almost curt. Your knees feel a bit weak anyway, partly from the sensory overload, partly from the thick, humid air pressing down like a heavy blanket. You awkwardly fold yourself onto one of the mats, the rough reeds scratching your calves. Your mentor wastes no time on pleasantries. He plunges his hand into the tub and pulls out a large, wet, slippery lump of clay. It looks indistinguishable from the mud you walk through, but in his hands it seems utterly pliable. With a practiced thwack, he slaps the mass onto a smooth stone slab set before him. His palms and fingers work quickly, firmly, slapping, pressing, shaping. It's precise, efficient, a movement repeated thousands upon thousands of times. Within moments, a smooth, rectangular tablet emerges, roughly the size of a modern hardback book, but much thicker and heavier, lying on the slab like a small, waiting world. This is your canvas. Next, he pulls a reed stock from his belt. Not the thick kind found by the river, but a finer, tougher variety. One end has been expertly sharpened with flint or some other keen edge into a precise triangular point. This is your pen, the arul. He hands it to you. The reed feels light, cool, slightly fibrous against your skin. You try to mimic his grip, pinching it between thumb and forefinger, your middle finger resting lightly underneath. It feels alien, awkward, nothing like the comfortable familiarity of a pencil or pen. Watch! Enam's voice cuts through your fumbling. He picks up another freshly made wet tablet and without hesitation presses the sharpened tip of his well-worn reed stylus deep into the clay. Not writing, impressing. The tip sinks in, and then with a steady pressure from his wrist, he pushes it forward. The damp clay obediently parts, leaving behind a clean, deep, wedge-shaped impression, ending in a distinct little triangle. It looks like an arrowhead or a tiny, flattened bird's footprint. He lifts the stylus. A perfect cuneiform sign sits in the clay. Good, he murmurs. Ox. One sign for one concept, one thing, simple, powerful, impressed directly into the medium of record. This is cuneiform, Latin for wedge-shaped. It's not as flashy as Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's more practical, more accountant. Then he impresses another sign, a single vertical wedge, a deep dot. He makes several in a row. Esh, he states. 1, 2, 3. Repeating vertical wedges for numbers. Sexagesimal? That's tomorrow or the next day. Today, you just need the sign for sheep. He presses down again, but this time it's not a single wedge. He makes a slanted wedge like a tilted V, then adds 2 small vertical dots beside it. The combined sign is abstract, yet carries a faint echo of pictographic meaning. Perhaps horns and a body? Yotarum, he confirms. Sheep. The core of your work, the object of your count. You stare at the small impressed pattern in the clay, feeling its strange blend of mystery and utter mundanity. Now you, Enam pushes a newly formed damp tablet onto the slab in front of you. The cool wetness seeps up through the stone. He hands you a freshly sharpened reed stylus. The pressure is instant. You take a deep breath, trying to recall his exact motion. Awkwardly, you press the tip towards the clay's surface. Too lightly, and you leave only a faint dent. Too hard, and the tip nearly buries itself completely. You adjust the pressure, mimicking the forward push of his wrist. The tip skids slightly, leaving not a clean, crisp wedge, but a wobbly, uneven groove. The end a messy blob. It looks like the trail of a drunken earthworm. Your face flushes. You glance surreptitiously at Anam. His expression is impassive. Again, he states in his dry voice, steady wrist, even pressure, one motion. You grit your teeth, smooth the disaster on your tablet, and try again. Press. Push. Slightly better this time, at least recognizably wedge-shaped, though the edges are ragged and the triangle lopsided. You repeat the simple motion. Press. Push. Smear smooth. Make a new tablet. Press. Push. Sweat beads on your temples, dripping onto the edge of the stone. Your wrist begins to ache, a deep, unfamiliar ache from using tiny muscles you never knew existed. Your fingers grow sore from the reed's rough edge. The smells, wool, damp earth, your own sweat, mingle in the heavy air. The sounds of the city beyond, distant shouts, the creak of a cartwheel, seem to recede into the background. Your world shrinks to this small rectangle of clay you constantly destroy and remake, to that deceptively simple reed in your hand, to that abstract symbol representing a bleeding woolly creature, Udum. Historians still debate exactly how the earliest cuneiform signs evolved from simple pictographs into this efficient, and for beginners, maddeningly difficult system of abstract wedges. Looking at your lopsided, wobbly attempts at the sheep sign, you suddenly feel a profound, visceral understanding of their debate. This isn't writing, it's microsculpture, a tiny, silent battle fought in clay.
The sting of reed-burned fingers fades as Anam stands abruptly. He gestures toward the pens with a jerk of his chin. No words. The lesson in abstract symbols is over. The woolly, bleating reality awaits. You scramble up, knees protesting, and follow him back into the swirling dust cloud kicked up by 1,000 restless hooves. The noise hits you like a physical wall, a cacophony of bleats, snorts, and the dry shuffle of trodden earth. The smell, already potent from a distance, now wraps around you. Warm lanolin, sun-baked dung, and the tang of animal sweat. It's alive, chaotic, and utterly overwhelming. Your neatly practiced Udum signs feel laughably inadequate. Anam stops near a large pen holding perhaps 200 sheep. They mill like a slow, dirty white river, bumping into each other, nibbling at sparse tufts of grass, or simply staring blankly ahead. A shepherd leans on his long staff nearby, his face weathered and impassive beneath a simple headcloth. He gives Anam a slight nod. Your mentor produces a damp tablet and his stylus. He doesn't look at the sheep. He looks at you. His eyes are flat, expectant. The unspoken command hangs in the dusty air. Count them. Panic flutters in your chest. Where do you even start? The sheep move. They cluster. They drift apart. They look terrifyingly identical. You squint, trying to pick a starting point. 1, 2, 3. You point vaguely. A sheep wanders behind another. Was that 4 or still 3? You lose track before reaching 10. Anam makes a low sound, almost a sigh, but sharper. Disapproval. He turns slightly and nods to the shepherd. The shepherd straightens. He doesn't shout. Instead, he raises his staff, not aggressively, but like a conductor's baton. He lets out a series of soft, rhythmic clicking sounds with his tongue against his teeth. Tss, tss, tss. It's surprisingly audible over the bleating. He takes a few deliberate steps along the edge of the pen, clicking steadily. The effect is subtle but profound. The milling chaos near him begins to shift. Sheep start moving with purpose, flowing away from his path, grouping tighter along the far fence line. It's not military precision, but the random scattering coalesces into a denser, more contained mass. He's herding them mentally, using sound and presence alone. Historians still argue whether these nonverbal cues were instinctive knowledge passed down or a highly developed, unrecorded language of husbandry. Watching the shepherd's quiet authority, you suspect it's both, ancient wisdom etched into muscle memory. See, Enam states, not looking at the shepherd, but at the now slightly more organized flock. Group, count group. He points his stylus toward the clustered sheep. The shepherd's intervention has created a rough cluster of about 20 animals pressed together. Ah, the penny drops. You're not meant to count each individual swirling beast in this sea of wool. You're meant to count manageable groups. It's the Bronze Age equivalent of batching data entry. A tiny flicker of hope sparks. Enam demonstrates. He points his stylus at a distinct cluster of sheep huddled near a water trough, maybe 15 animals. He makes a quick, deep impression on his tablet, a vertical wedge, esh, followed by a smaller wedge angled differently. You recognize it from earlier drills, the sign for 10, U. Then 5 distinct vertical wedges beside it, esh repeated 5 times, 15. He doesn't write the word sheep, udum, for every group. That's implied by the context, efficiency. He moves his stylus to another group milling near the gate. About 18, he impresses the 10 sign, then 8 vertical wedges, 18. He glances at you, then jerks his chin towards a smaller group of younger sheep, maybe 7 or 8, separated near the shepherd's post. Your turn. Your throat is dry. You fumble for your own tablet and stylus. The group is restless, shifting. Are there 7 or 8? That small one just nudged another. Does it count separately? You settle on 8. Your hand trembles slightly as you press the stylus into the cool clay. Press. Push. You make the 10 sign? No, too many. Just vertical wedges. 1, 2, 3. You concentrate, trying to replicate Enam's clean, single-motion wedges. They come out shaky, uneven, but recognizable. 8 vertical wedges. You glance up. Enam's eyes are on your tablet. He gives a single, barely perceptible grunt. Not praise, but perhaps not utter condemnation. Progress measured in wobbly wedges. He points to another group, then another. You move along the pen's edge, tablet clutched awkwardly, stylus poised. Your world narrows to clusters of wool. 10 sheep dozing in a patch of shade, you impress 10. Ooh. 5 nosing at a bare patch of earth, 5 esh. A larger group of about 23 near the corner, 10 sign, 3 esh. Wait, sexagesimal isn't needed for this count, thankfully. The rhythm is hypnotic, almost meditative, despite the dust and the bleeding and the lingering smell. Find a group, estimate its size, hopefully accurately, impress the symbols, move on. Forget the overwhelming whole, focus on the manageable parts. It's repetitive, physically tiring as you crouch and peer, mentally draining as you constantly estimate and recount. A mundane revelation settles over you. Civilization wasn't built on grand battles alone, but on the relentless, unglamorous aggregation of numbers. 10 sheep here, 15 there, 8 over there, meticulously recorded in damp clay by people with sore wrists and dust in their eyes. And right now, you are that civilization, one shaky wedge at a time. A fly buzzes persistently near your ear. You don't even bother to swat it. You're too busy counting the corner group again. Was that 23 or 24?
The rhythmic thump, thump, thump of your own panicked heartbeat nearly drowns out the bleating as Enam silently takes the incriminating tablet from your numb fingers. His expression, usually as readable as a blank slab of dried clay, tightens almost imperceptibly around the eyes. He doesn't look angry. He looks intensely focused, like a predator assessing a scent trail. He holds your tablet beside his own, his eyes flicking rapidly between the clusters of wedges, your wobbly tallies versus his precise impressions. The silence stretches, thick with dust and dread. You can practically feel the weight of the missing sheep pressing down on your shoulders. Two sheep unaccounted for. In the grand scheme of the temple's vast flux, perhaps insignificant. In the meticulous world of the Dubsar, a potentially catastrophic error. A bead of sweat, unrelated to the sun's heat, trickles down your spine. Ennam doesn't berate you. He doesn't even look at you. Instead, he turns sharply and strides towards the weathered shepherd, still leaning against his staff near the gate. He holds out both tablets, pointing first to a cluster on his own record, a neat group of 18 vertical wedges beside the 10 sign, U, then stabs his stylus towards your corresponding, much shakier impression of 18 wedges for what was clearly the same group. The shepherd's eyes, deep set and crinkled from years of squinting against the sun and dust, narrow as he studies the marks. He looks from the tablets to the pen, his gaze sweeping over the shifting mass of wool. He mutters something low and guttural in Sumerian, too fast for you to catch, then points his staff decisively towards the far corner of the enclosure, near a pile of rough-hewn stones used for repairing the low walls. His finger jabs the air twice. 2. Relief floods you, so intense it's almost dizzying. They weren't missing, they were just misplaced, hiding perhaps, or simply separated and overlooked in your novice panic. Ennam lets out a breath that might have been the ghost of a sigh. He nods curtly to the shepherd, then turns back to you. He points his stylus first at the stones, then back at your tablet. The message is clear. See? Count what is there, not what you expect, not what is convenient. It's a fundamental lesson, hammered home not with words, but with the visceral terror of potential failure and the profound relief of a simple, stony hiding place. Historians often focus on the how of Sumerian accounting, but rarely delve into the sheer, gut-wrenching pressure of accuracy when the inventory has eyes, legs, and a tendency to wander behind rocks. Your respect for the shepherd's watchful gaze deepens immeasurably. You spend the rest of the morning under Ennam's silent, watchful eye, recounting every group. Your movements are slower now, more deliberate. You crouch lower, peer harder, wait for clusters to stabilize before committing the wedges to clay. You double-check groups near water troughs, behind feed baskets, lurking in patches of deeper shade. The stylus feels heavier, the responsibility etched into your bones alongside the ache in your wrist. Each vertical wedge pressed into the damp surface feels like a tiny vow. I am here. You are counted. The mundane act of tallying sheep transforms into an act of profound, almost sacred order-making amidst chaos. You understand, suddenly and deeply, why the Dubsar held such status. They weren't just clerks. They were the keepers of tangible reality, the anchors preventing the temple's wealth, its grain, its beer, its sheep, from dissolving into chaos. As the sun climbs towards its zenith, baking the dust into a fine powder that coats your skin and the back of your throat, Ennam finally gestures for you to stop. He takes your finished tablet, scans it quickly with his experienced eye, comparing it to his own master record. He gives a single sharp nod. Approval. Or at least the absence of glaring error. It feels like a reprieve. He points toward the shade near the clay tubs where you practiced earlier. Ninda, kas, he states. Bread, beer, lunch. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of earned respite. You stumble towards the shade, your legs stiff, your eyes gritty. You collapse on a reed mat, the rough texture a welcome anchor. A young temple servant, perhaps only a few years older than you, appears silently, placing a coarse, flat barley loaf and a fired clay beaker before you. The beer inside is thick, cloudy, and lukewarm, smelling faintly of yeast and earth. It's not refreshing, it's sustaining. You tear off a piece of the dense, slightly sour bread and dip it into the beer, softening it. The taste is bland, gritty, utterly functional. This is your wage, earned wedge by wedge. As you chew, the sounds of the city wash over you, the distant clang of a coppersmith, the rhythmic thud of a mortar and pestle grinding grain, the ever-present background hum of the pens. You watch En-Nam across the courtyard, meticulously smoothing the surface of a fresh tablet, readying it for the afternoon's counts. His movements are economical, unhurried, a study in focused calm. The panic of the morning feels distant, replaced by a bone-deep weariness and a flicker of something else, a hard-won sliver of competence. You survived the count. You corrected the error. You earned your bread and beer. The vast, overwhelming machine of Uruk grinds on, and for today at least, your small, clay-stained cog is turning smoothly within it. You take another gulp of the earthy beer, feeling its warmth spread through your tired limbs. The afternoon flocks loom, but for this moment, in the dusty shade, with the taste of barley and accountability on your tongue, there is a simple, profound satisfaction. The numbers, for now, are at peace. And so, perhaps, are you.
The earthy tang of the barley beer still lingers on your tongue, a faint warmth spreading through your limbs as you sit slumped in the shade. The coarse bread sits heavy but satisfying in your belly. For a few precious moments, the relentless bleeding, the dust, the pressure of the count, it all recedes. You watch a lizard dart across the sun-baked mud brick wall, a tiny flash of life oblivious to ledgers and lost sheep. This small pocket of stillness feels earned, a sanctuary woven from reed mats and exhaustion. The reprieve is brutally short-lived. A shadow falls across you. En-Nam stands there, holding two fresh, damp tablets. The silent command is clear. Break time is over. The afternoon flocks await, and with them, a new layer of complexity. He jerks his head towards a different pen, smaller than the morning's but visibly more chaotic. The sheep here aren't just milling, they're darting. Smaller, nimbler, their bleats higher-pitched and incessant, and clinging close to many of them, wobbling on unsteady legs, are lambs, tiny bundles of fluff and frantic energy. Your heart sinks. Counting static groups was hard enough. Counting groups where half the members are prone to sudden, unpredictable sprints behind their mothers, this feels like cruel and unusual punishment for a first-day apprentice. En-Nam leads you to the edge of the pen. The air here smells sharper, milkier, mixed with the usual dung and wool. The shepherd here is younger, more animated, constantly shifting his stance to keep the skittish lambs from straying too far. En-Nam doesn't start counting immediately. Instead, he points his stylus towards a ewe with a particularly frisky lamb bouncing at her side. He makes a single impression on his tablet, the familiar slanted wedge and two dots of udam, sheep. But then, right beside it, he presses a new sign, a small, deep vertical wedge nestled close to the mother sign. It looks like a chick huddled under a hen. Silim, En-Nam states flatly. Lamb, offspring. The concept is simple. One adult ewe, udam, plus one lamb, silim, a unit, a family, economically speaking. Then he points to another ewe nearby, calmly chewing her cud while two lambs butt heads playfully beside her. En-Nam impresses udam again, then two small vertical wedges, silim signs. Not two separate lamb signs, but the lamb sign modified by the number 2. Your brain stutters. It's not just counting objects anymore. It's categorizing relationships and quantifying them within the same symbol cluster. The abstraction level just jumped. Mainstream history celebrates the invention of writing, but rarely dwells on the sheer mental gymnastics required to invent this, a notation system capable of distinguishing not just quantity, but type and association within a single glance at a clay slab. It's bureaucracy born in wool and wobbly legs. He points to a cluster, 3 ewes, each with a single lamb dutifully following. You raise your stylus over your own damp tablet. Okay, 3 Udum signs? But how to indicate the lambs? Do you add 3 separate Silim signs? That feels messy. You hesitate, glancing at Ennam. He watches, impassive. You recall his grouping, 1 Udum plus 1 Silim per mother lamb pair. So, 3 of those units. But how to write that concisely? Panic whispers. You tentatively impress 1 Udum, then the Silim sign beside it. Then you leave a small space and do it again and again. 3 distinct mother lamb groupings. It takes up more space on the tablet than Ennam's efficient notations, but it's clear, right? You risk a look. Ennam's eyes flick to your tablet. He gives a single curt nod. Not praise, but acceptance. Relief washes over you. Maybe you can do this. Then you spot it, a lone lamb bleeding plaintively near the water trough. No mother in sight. Your stylus hovers. Is it lost? Orphaned? How do you record 1 Silim without an Udum? Is it even part of the official temple inventory yet, or just stray fluff? You freeze. Ennam follows your gaze. He doesn't react to the lamb. He looks at you, waiting. The pressure returns, a familiar vice tightening around your temples. Do you count it? Where? How? The simple act of pressing a wedge into clay suddenly feels fraught with existential accounting dilemmas. Historians still hotly debate how strictly Sumerian temple accounting adhered to theoretical categories versus pragmatic, on-the-ground realities like stray lambs. Looking at the lost little creature, you understand why the debate rages. Theory is neat. Woolly reality is messy. The young shepherd saves you. He notices the lamb, clicks his tongue sharply, and with a few deft movements of his shaft, gently herds it towards a group where another youth seems tolerant, if not exactly maternal. The lamb instinctively presses against her flank. The shepherd glances at Ennam, gives a small shrug, and makes a subtle gesture towards the now merged group. Ennam grunts, a sound that could mean anything, and simply adds an extra vertical wedge to the Silim count beside the tolerant use Udum sign on his tablet. Problem solved. Pragmatically, efficiently. No new category, no philosophical debate etched in clay. Just 1 more lamb counted here than there. The record reflects the current reality in the pen, not an idealized structure. The lesson is silent but profound. The clay records the what is, even if the what is slightly messy. Sometimes a lost lamb just needs to be nudged towards the nearest available udder, and the numbers adjusted accordingly. You take a shaky breath, press your stylus into your own tablet, and add an extra wedge to your grouping near the water trough. Your hand steadier than you feel. On to the next cluster, the next tiny crisis in wool, the next small victory pressed into the cool, forgiving surface of the mud.
The weight of the damp tablet in your hand feels different now. Heavier, not just with wet clay, but with consequence. Every wobble in your Udum or Silim sign, every hesitant grouping feels like a tiny crack in the foundation of the temple's wealth. As the afternoon shadows stretch long and golden across the dusty courtyard, Ennam gestures not toward another pen, but back toward the shaded area near the clay tubs. Relief washes over you. No more darting lambs, at least for now. But the relief is short-lived. He points to a growing stack of tablets you produce throughout the day, each one a fragile rectangle of recorded reality, glistening faintly in the shade. Then he points to a large, shallow reed basket lined with coarse linen. The unspoken command is clear. Transport these carefully. You gather the tablets, cradling them against your chest like newborn lambs. They're cool, surprisingly hefty, and slick with residual moisture. The smell of wet earth is strong. One wrong move, one stumble, and hours of counting could dissolve into a smear of mud. You walk with exaggerated care, eyes fixed on the uneven ground, heart pounding with every pebble underfoot. Ennam walks ahead, seemingly oblivious, carrying his own stack with the effortless grace of long practice. You pass through a low archway in the mud brick wall, leaving the bleeding chaos of the pens behind. The sudden relative quiet is jarring. You enter a large, dimly lit room. The air here is cooler, drier, smelling of dust, old straw, and something else, the faint mineral scent of thousands of dried clay tablets. Shelves line the walls, not wood, but sturdy mud brick benches reinforced with timber. Stacked upon them, row upon row, are countless dried tablets, some small and simple, others large and densely covered with precise wedges. This is the beating heart of the operation, the temple archive, the data center of Uruk. Your counted sheep, your wobbly wedges, are about to become part of this immense, silent library of facts. A senior scribe, older than Enum, his scalp gleaming under a shaft of dusty sunlight from a high window, looks up from a large tablet spread on a low table. His eyes, sharp and watery, scan Enum, then flick dismissively to you and your precious cargo. Enum places his tablets respectfully on the edge of the table and murmurs a few low words. The senior scribe, you catch the name Lugal-Nesag, grunts, barely glancing at the fresh records. His fingers, stained with dried clay dust, trace the wedges on the large tablet before him, a master ledger perhaps, or a monthly grain yield report. He's the server admin of the Bronze Age. Enum turns and gestures to a clear space on a lower shelf, your record's new home. You carefully, oh so carefully, begin to lay your tablets down flat, side by side. They must dry slowly, evenly, away from direct sun or drafts, or they'll warp, crack, and render your hard-won wedges illegible. History books talk about the invention of writing, preserving knowledge, but they rarely mention the sheer physical vulnerability of the medium. A dropped basket, a leaky roof, an over-enthusiastic cleaner, and millennia of administrative history could vanish in an instant. Historians still argue fiercely about how many early records were lost simply due to poor storage or accidental destruction before they could be fired in a kiln, which wasn't even standard practice for everyday accounting tablets like these. You place the last tablet down, breathing a sigh of relief. Safe, for now. But Enum isn't done. He points to a large, wide-mouthed ceramic jar filled with murky water standing near the archive. He then points to your hands, still smeared with gray clay, and to the small pile of discarded practice tablets you'd botched earlier. The message is clear. Clean up, recycle. Efficiency reigns supreme, nothing wasted. You dunk the failed tablets into the water jar. They dissolve surprisingly quickly, the sharp edges of your imperfect wedges softening, blurring, then vanishing entirely, returning to a homogeneous, sludgy gray. Your early struggles, your shaky, drunken earthworm attempts, erased without a trace. The clay is ready to be reshaped, repressed, reborn as a fresh record tomorrow. It's a strangely comforting cycle. Failure absorbed, transformed, given another chance. You wash your hands and forearms in the jar, the cool water sluicing away the grime of the day, dust, sweat, and the stubborn grit of dried clay. The water turns cloudy. You splash some on your face, the shock of coolness momentarily clearing the fog of fatigue. As you dry your hands on the rough hem of your tunic, you glance back into the archive. Lugal-Nesad is still bent over his master tablet, his stylus moving with slow, deliberate precision. Enum is standing silently nearby, observing. The only sounds are the faint scratch of stylus on clay, the distant, muffled bleating from the pens, and the soft rustle of straw underfoot. It's a world of profound, quiet concentration, a sanctuary of numbers amidst the city's bustle. Leaning against the cool mud brick wall just outside the archive door, the golden light of late afternoon warm on your skin, you feel a wave of exhaustion so deep it's almost pleasant. Your wrist throbs dully, your eyes feel gritty, your back aches from crouching. But beneath the weariness, something else hums, a quiet sense of belonging. You navigated the chaos of the pens, you wrestled meaning into wet clay, you faced the terror of the missing sheep and the archivist's dismissive glance. You contributed, however shakily, to the vast, intricate machine of Uruk. The sun dips lower, casting long, peaceful shadows. The scent of cooking fires begins to mingle with the dust and clay. Somewhere, a flute plays a simple, repetitive melody. The relentless count is paused. The tablets are drying. The sheep are penned. For this suspended moment, between the toil of the day and the unknown of tomorrow, there is only the warmth of the fading sun, the ache of muscles used, and the deep, silent hum of a city and its countless pounted sheep settling in for the night. You close your eyes, just for a moment, breathing in the calm. The numbers, for now, are still. The low, resonant note of a large bronze gong shivers through the cooling air, echoing off the mud brick walls. It's not loud, but it carries a profound sense of finality, like a stone dropping into still water. Day's end. Around you, the rhythm of the vast temple complex shifts. The clatter of looms ceases mid-throw. The rhythmic thud of grain pounders falls silent. The urgent calls of overseers soften into weary murmurs. Even the distant, constant bleating from the pens seems to settle into a lower, more restful register. The relentless machine of Uruk is powering down, cog by cog. Your own exhaustion, held at bay by the novelty and pressure of the day, crashes over you like a warm, heavy wave. Every muscle protests, wrists, shoulders, back, legs. Your eyes feel full of grit. Inam emerges from the archive's dim interior, his expression unchanged, yet somehow softer in the golden, slanting light. He doesn't speak. He simply gestures for you to follow, not back towards the pens or the clay tubs, but deeper into the administrative complex, towards a different kind of hum, the low buzz of many tired voices converging. You trail after him, your sandals scuffing the packed earth floor, past storerooms with heavy wooden doors now barred, past small courtyards where temple servants are raking smooth the day's footprints. The air smells less of animals and dust now, more of wood smoke and something warm, yeasty and slightly sour. Beer. You enter a large vaulted storeroom near the kitchens. The atmosphere is thick with weariness and anticipation. Dozens of men, scribes like Enam, potters with clay-dusted arms, weavers smelling of lanolin, laborers still sweating from hauling grain sacks, are forming loose, shuffling lines before a long, sturdy wooden counter. Behind the counter stand several temple administrators, their robes slightly finer, their expressions carefully neutral. Large ceramic jars, taller than you are, stand open behind them, emanating that distinctive, earthy, yeasty scent. This is payday, Sumerian style. Inam joins the shortest line, reserved seemingly for the scribal staff. You stand slightly behind him, feeling conspicuously new and grubby. You watch as the man ahead of Inam steps forward. An administrator consults a small, dried tablet, a ration list perhaps, then gestures to an attendant. The attendant dips a large, bulbous ladle made of fired clay into one of the great jars. Thick, cloudy, tan liquid sloshes as he lifts it, dripping foam. He carefully pours it into a sturdy, wide-mouthed jug the scribe holds out. It looks like a generous amount. Kaz, beer. The scribe nods, receives a small, round, flat loaf of bread, ninda, placed atop the jug's mouth, and moves away, with a small smile of weary satisfaction touching his lips. Then it's Inam's turn. The same ritual. The ladle dips, rises, pours. His jug is filled, the bread loaf placed. He steps aside. Now all eyes, including the administrator's, turn to you. The administrator's gaze flicks down to another tablet. He frowns slightly, his stylus hovering over a line. He murmurs something to an attendant, who scurries off into a side room. A flicker of anxiety sparks in your tired chest. Did you not earn your ration? Were your wedges too wobbly? Did the lost lamb count against you? The attendant returns, not carrying a large jug, but a smaller beaker, similar to the one you had at lunch. It's still substantial, but undeniably less than Inam's portion. The administrator dips the ladle again, filling the beaker carefully. He places a smaller, slightly darker loaf of bread on top, likely barley, not the finer emmer wheat that the senior scribes received. He pushes it across the counter towards you, his expression unreadable. Dubsar tur, he states. Junior scribe. Apprentice rations. Relief washes over you, tinged with a faint, unexpected sting of, not disappointment exactly, but a keen awareness of your place at the very bottom of this intricate hierarchy. You grasp the beaker. It's cool and heavy in your hands, the beer inside opaque, with flecks of grain husk swirling near the top. The smell is pungent, alive. This is your wage, earned wedge by wedge, bleat by bleat, not coins, not credit, but liquid bread, the foundation of Sumerian sustenance and society. Historians love debating whether this beer was weak or strong, daily nutrition or ritual intoxicant. Holding your beaker, smelling its potent earthiness, feeling its substantial weight, you suspect it was both, fuel for the body and a small daily ritual marking survival. You follow Inam out of the storeroom, clutching your beaker and bread. The courtyard outside is bathed in the deep gold and long shadows of sunset. Small groups of men are settling onto reed mats, low benches, or simply the worn steps of buildings. The murmur of conversation is low, punctuated by the clink of ceramics and the sound of tearing bread. It's a profound communal exhaustion and quiet contentment. Inam finds a relatively quiet spot near a wall still radiating the day's warmth. He lowers himself smoothly onto a mat, placing his jug and bread beside him. You sink down nearby, your legs grateful for the rest. You tear off a piece of your dense, dark loaf. It's coarse, filling, tasting strongly of barley and the smoky oven. You dip it in your beaker of beer, letting the liquid soften the hard crust. The first sip is challenging. It's thick, almost porridge-like on the tongue, sour up front with a slightly sweet, malty undertone, and leaves a gritty residue. It's not refreshing, it's substantial. It feels like food and drink combined, coating your stomach, warming you from the inside out. The fatigue doesn't vanish, but it softens, becoming a heavy, almost pleasant blanket. You watch Inam take a long, slow draught directly from his jug, his eyes half closed, the lines on his face easing slightly. Across the courtyard, a group of laborers laugh softly, sharing a larger jug. A weaver meticulously picks grain husks from his beard. The air cools rapidly as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. The first stars begin to prick through the deepening blue. Sitting there, the coarse bread in one hand, the heavy beaker in the other, the ache of the day's labor settled deep in your bones, you feel an unexpected sense of connection to Inam, silently sharing the dusk, to the other workers, united in their weariness and their simple reward, to the countless generations before you who sat just like this, under these same stars, drinking their beer, eating their bread, their bodies tired from building, weaving, hauling, counting. The intricate ledgers, the precise wedges, the vast flocks, it all distilled down to this moment. Sustenance earned, shared in the quiet companionship of twilight. The numbers were still,
The clay was drying, the sheep were penned in, and you, the newest, smallest cog, were here, tasting the warm, gritty, sour reality of being a Dubsar Tur in the great city of Uruk. You take another sip, deeper this time, letting the ancient, earthy flavor fill your mouth, the foam clinging briefly to your upper lip before dissolving. The city sighs around you, settling into night. Your first day, etched in dust, clay, and now the taste of barley beer, is finally, truly done.
The deep, dreamless sleep of utter exhaustion is shattered not by a gong, but by the insistent, bone-deep ache in your wrist and shoulder. Dawn filters gray and cool through the simple reed screen covering the doorway of the cramped dormitory shared by other low-level temple workers. You groan softly, rolling onto your back. The coarse sleeping mat feels like stone beneath your protesting muscles. The taste of last night's gritty beer still lingers faintly, a sour reminder. Yesterday's triumph feels distant, buried under layers of stiffness and the dawning dread of more counting, more sheep, more wobbly wedges. Stumbling into the pre-dawn chill of the courtyard, splashing your face with water from a large communal jar, the routine feels both alien and strangely familiar. Enam is already there, near the clay tubs, his movements precise as he prepares a fresh stack of damp tablets. He doesn't greet you. His eyes, sharp in the gray light, simply flick towards the tubs, then the reeds for sharpening styluses. The unspoken command hangs, prepare, now. Yesterday was about survival, about grasping the raw mechanics of counting living, breathing inventory. Today, Enam makes it clear, is about precision. He leads you not back to the pens first, but to a quieter, shaded workspace. He places a perfectly formed wet tablet before you, then produces a small woven basket, not wool this time, grain. Barley grains, small, hard, and golden brown. He pours a small mound onto the stone slab beside the tablet. She, he states, barley. Then he points to the grains. Ish, min, ish. 1, 2, 3. He counts them slowly, deliberately, pressing a single vertical wedge, ish, for each grain. 1 wedge per grain. Simple, painfully simple. Then he pushes a larger pile towards you, maybe 30 grains. Your turn. You pick up your stylus, press, push. Ish, ish, ish. 1, 2, 3. Your wrist protests almost immediately, the familiar ache flaring. By 10, it's a dull throb. By 15, your wedges are becoming shallow, hurried scratches. 30 single wedges take up half the tablet. It feels stupid, wasteful, clumsy. You glance at Enam, a flicker of frustration in your tired eyes. There has to be a better way. He watches your struggle, his expression unreadable. When you finish, breathing slightly harder, he sweeps the counted grains aside. He points to another pile, roughly the same size. Then he picks up his own stylus and tablet. Instead of pressing 30 individual wedges, he makes one deep, clear impression, the sign for 10, U, the angled wedge you learned yesterday. Then, directly beside it, he impresses 3 distinct vertical wedges, Esh, 10 plus 3, 13? But the pile was bigger. He ignores your confusion. He repeats the 10 sign, U, twice more, 3 10 signs. Then he adds 3 more vertical wedges. 3 groups of 10 plus 3, 33. He points to the pile, then to his concise notation, 3 U signs and 3 Esh. Clean, efficient, tablet space saved, wrist saved. The concept clicks, hard and bright. Grouping, but not just physical groups of sheep, abstract groupings of 10. A base 10 system layered onto the simple tally marks. A wave of relief washes over you, quickly followed by a deeper awe. This seemingly simple shift, using a symbol for a concept of quantity, 10, instead of just the quantity, 10, individual marks, is revolutionary. It's the leap from tally marks to actual numerals. Historians argue endlessly about when and why this abstraction fully crystallized, but seeing Enam do it with such casual mastery, you understand it wasn't a grand intellectual pronouncement. It was born from sore wrists and the practical need to fit more information onto a finite slab of mud before it dried. Then Enam shatters your newfound comfort. He points to a much larger pile of barley, hundreds of grains. He doesn't start counting by tens. He makes a different sign, a larger, deeper wedge with a distinctive shape. Gar, he states, a measurement unit, a container's worth. Then he points to a large, standard ceramic vessel sitting nearby, the physical manifestation of the gar. You grasp it. They weren't counting individual grains for large quantities. They were measuring by volume, filling the gar, marking it on the tablet. But then he points back to the smaller piles. How did the small counts relate to the large gar? How many individual she in one gar? The headache begins. Enam sees your confusion. He gestures. Count a small pile into a small bowl. Fill the bowl, mark it somehow. He makes a new sign on his tablet, smaller than the gar sign. Ban, he says, a smaller unit. Then he demonstrates the hierarchy. 6 ban make 1 berig. 5 berig make 1 gar. Your mind reels. Base 10 was manageable. This is a nested hierarchy of units. 6 ban equals 1 berig. 5 berig equals 1 gar. So 30 ban in 1 gar. Or, wait, 6 times 5? 30? But why not just use base 10? Why mix bases? The sheer arbitrary complexity of it feels like a deliberate test. Historians still tear their hair out over the Sumerian preference for mixed-base systems, like our modern time, 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours. Was it practical? Tradition? A sacred number? Enam offers no explanation. He simply expects you to absorb this system, the relationships between the signs, ish, ban, berig, gar, like learning the grammar of an invisible language written in grain. He pushes a moderately sized pile of barley towards you and a small, standardized clay bowl, the ban measure. Count ban, he instructs. Your task is to scoop grain into the ban bowl, level it, pour it aside, and mark 1 ban sign on the tablet for each full measure. Then, when you have 6 ban counted, you mark 1 berig sign instead, and so on. It's meticulous, repetitive, physically less taxing than pressing 30 wedges for 30 grains, but mentally demanding. Keeping track of the nested units, the conversions happening silently in your head. That's 4 ban. So do I need a berig soon? 5 ban. Still just bond signs. 6. Erase the last 5 bond marks, or just add the berig sign now? How do I show 6 ban and 1 berig? The symbols blur. The grain feels like sand slipping through your understanding. The cool morning air does nothing to ease the heat building behind your eyes. The simplicity of pressing a wedge for a single sheep feels like a lost paradise. This is the real work of the Dubsar, not just counting, but translating the messy abundance of the world, grain, wool, beer, sheep, into the clean, complex, and occasionally baffling logic of standardized units etched forever into the skin of the earth. You take a shaky breath, scoop your first ban of barley, and press the unfamiliar sign into the clay, the ache in your wrist now accompanied by a dull throb beginning at your temples. The sheep, you realize, with a pang of almost nostalgia, might have been simpler after all.
The grooves in your stylus feel deeper today, not physically, but imprinted on your mind. The shape of a ban, the curve of a barik, the weighty presence of a gur.
Your fingers move with a fraction more certainty, pressing the signs for grain measures onto the damp clay, translating scoops of barley into nested symbols. The headache hasn't vanished, but it's settled into a low hum, a background noise to the focused rhythm of scoop, level, pour, impress. 1 ban, 2 ban, 3. You glance at the accumulating signs, mentally ticking toward 6. Barik next. Inam watches, silent but present, a statue of quiet expectation. Just as you near your 6th ban, ready to etch the satisfyingly complex Barik sign, a shadow falls across your workspace. Not Inam's. This shadow is broader, draped in finer, undyed linen, smelling faintly of cedar oil and authority. You look up, blinking away grain dust. A man stands there, older than Inam, his shaved head gleaming, his face impassive, but radiating an effortless sense of importance. A thick necklace of polished carnelian beads rests against his chest. This is Lugal Nisag, the senior archivist you glimpsed yesterday. His watery eyes scan your half-finished tablet, your pile of grain, the small bond measure. He doesn't acknowledge you. He speaks directly to Inam, his voice low and measured, a stream of Sumerian too rapid and complex for you to follow. You catch only fragments. Brewer's requisition, 3rd quarter moon, verify against last gur received. Inam listens intently, then nods once sharply. He turns to you, his expression unreadable, but the air shifts palpably. The beer lesson is abruptly suspended. Lugal Nasag gestures for you both to follow. You scramble to your feet, abandoning your carefully counted bonds, your tablet left vulnerable on the slab. The senior scribe strides ahead, leading you out of the shaded workspace through a bustling courtyard where potters stack newly fired jugs and into a smaller, enclosed space near the kitchens. The air here is thick with the rich, malty scent of fermenting grain, warmer, almost steamy. Large vats, taller than a person and wider than your sleeping mat, stand bubbling gently. Men stir thick mashes with long wooden paddles. The heat is intense. Lugal Nasag stops before a junior brewer, a young man wiping sweat from his forearm with a dusty forearm. Lugal Nasag holds out a dried tablet, a requisition order. He points to a series of signs, the gur symbol, repeated several times, followed by the sign for barley, she. Then he points emphatically to a large stack of sealed grain sacks against the wall. The brewer looks nervous. He gestures towards the sacks, then back to the tablet, speaking rapidly. Inam steps forward. He picks up a small, sharp stylus, different from your reed one, perhaps bone or bronze, and a small, fresh tablet. Lugal Nisag hands him the requisition. Inam scans it, then walks to the sacks. This is no longer about learning. This is an audit, real time, high stakes, for the brewer at least. You hover nearby, trying to be invisible. Inam doesn't count individual grains or even use the band measure. He inspects the seals on the sacks, intact clay boule stamped with temple marks. He checks the weave, the knots. Satisfied, he gestures for a sack to be opened. He plunges his hand deep inside, pulls out a fistful of grain, lets it cascade through his fingers, scrutinizing its color, size, and freedom from chaff or stones. He smells it. He might even chew a kernel. He nods curtly to Lugal Nasag, genuine barley. Then comes the quantity. He points to the gur sign on the requisition, then to the stack. How many sacks equal a gur? This is where the system's practical application hits. Inam counts the sacks aloud, his finger tapping each one. 10 sacks. The requisition called for 6 gur. He turns to Lugal Nasag and impresses on his small tablet a single gur sign, then 6 vertical wedges beside it. 6 gur. Then below it he impresses the sack symbol, a simple rectangle, and 10 vertical wedges. 10 sacks. The record links the abstract unit, gur, to the physical containers delivered. But Lugal-Nisag isn't done. He points back to the requisition tablet, then to Inam's fresh record, then makes a sharp gesture toward the bubbling vats. The question hangs unspoken. Is the grain delivered sufficient for the beer ordered? Inam's face remains impassive, but you see a subtle tension in his jaw. This is where the Dubsar's knowledge transcends simple counting. He needs to know the brewery's yield ratios, how much barley makes how much beer. Mainstream history focuses on beer's importance, but rarely details the complex math behind keeping the temple and the city adequately lubricated. Inam consults something etched in his memory, or perhaps a standard known only to senior scribes. He makes a quick calculation. He impresses another sign on his tablet, a jar with wavy lines, beer, then a number. Then he points back to his 6 gur notation and the sack count, then decisively toward the vats. His notation seems to confirm the grain delivered should produce the beer volume requested. Lugal-Nisag studies the tablet, then gives a single slow nod. The brewer exhales audibly, crisis averted. The audit record is complete. Historians still debate the exact conversion rates used in different Sumerian cities and periods. Was it standardized or locally variable? Watching Inam's swift, confident calculation, you suspect it was a closely guarded blend of both. As you leave the steamy brewery, the cooler courtyard air feels like a blessing. Lugal-Nisag strides off without a backward glance. Inam pauses near a water jar, rinsing the grain dust from his hands. He glances at you. For the first time, you see something akin to instruction beyond the mechanics. Kas, she, ninda, he states flatly. Beer, barley, bread. Then he points back toward the brewery, then toward the ration storeroom. The connection is made. The grain you measure feeds the brewery that makes the beer that fills your ration jug. The numbers aren't abstract. They are a closed loop, a circle of sustenance recorded in clay. Your wobbly udum signs for sheep, your fumbling bond counts for barley, they all feed into this vast interdependent system. One misplaced wedge in the brewery audit could mean thinner beer, smaller rations, grumbling workers. The weight of the stylus feels heavier, yet also more meaningful. Back at your shaded workspace, your abandoned barley pile and half-finished tablet wait. Inam doesn't mention the audit. He simply points to the grain and your stylus. The lesson resumes. But your perspective has shifted. As you scoop the next bond, pressing the sign into the clay, you're no longer just counting grain. You're tracing a tiny part of the invisible thread that weaves barley fields, brewery vats, scribal audits, and the heavy beaker of beer you'll earn at dusk. The ache in your wrist is still there, the nested unit still baffling, but the why is suddenly profoundly clear. You press the sign for barik, your first one, and feel a flicker of connection to the silent, efficient logic of uruk, etched not just in clay, but in the very taste of your daily bread and beer. The sun climbs higher, the city hums, and the numbers, complex and vital, continue their endless quiet dance.
The scent of the brewery, yeasty, warm, alive, clings to your tunic like a ghost as you return to the shaded workspace. Your abandoned barley pile sits innocently, a golden mound now imbued with deeper meaning. The bond measure, the stylus, the damp tablet, tools no longer just for counting, but for anchoring the invisible threads binding field, vat, and ration jug. Inam gestures wordlessly back to the grain. The lesson resumes. Scoop, level, pour, impress, ban, ban, ban. Your fingers move with a fraction more confidence. The nested units of bareg and gur, less like an impenetrable code, more like a challenging but learnable dialect. 6 ban, you etch the bareg sign. its complex form feeling like a small victory pressed into the cool clay. Just as you settle into the rhythm, the low, resonant bleating from the nearby pens shifts. It's not the usual restless murmur. It's punctuated by sharp cries from the shepherds, the rhythmic thwack of staffs on hard-packed earth, and a new sound, the metallic snick of shears. Enam's head lifts, his gaze sharpening. He sweeps your grain-counting materials aside with startling efficiency, gesturing for you to grab your tablet and stylus. The barley lesson is abruptly over. Wool season has begun. You follow him back to the pens, but the scene is transformed. Temporary reed screens have been erected, creating makeshift work areas. Sheep are being firmly guided into wooden restraining stocks, simple frames that hold them still, heads poking out one end, bodies exposed. Men kneel beside them, large bronze shears flashing in the sun. The air fills with the crisp, clean scent of freshly cut wool, thick with the warm animal smell of lanolin and the sharp tang of sheep sweat. Fleeces fall away in great dirty white clouds, revealing the surprisingly pink skin underneath. The sheep, released from the stocks, stagger slightly, looking smaller, oddly vulnerable, before trotting off to join newly shorn companions, their bleats sounding strangely higher-pitched without their woolly coats. Enam leads you not to the shearing itself, but to a series of low tables piled high with the freshly shorn fleeces. The texture is incredible, dense, springy, still warm. Temple workers, mostly women with deft hands and forearms dusted with wool grease, are busy sorting them. This is where your counting begins anew, but with a crucial twist. It's no longer just udum, a sheep. It's siki, wool. And siki isn't just one thing. A senior sorter, her face lined but her eyes bright and discerning, holds up two fleeces side by side. One is long, lustrous, the fibers flowing like creamy water. The other is shorter, denser, coarser to the touch. She points emphatically, speaking rapidly to Enam. He nods, then turns to you, holding up the finer fleece. He impresses the siki sign, a wavy line, onto your tablet. Then, beside it, he adds a small distinctive wedge modifier you haven't seen before, a mark denoting quality, grade. Siki ma, he states, fine wool. He points to the coarse fleece, same siki sign, but a different modifier wedge. Siki tur, coarse wool. Mainstream history records wool's importance for Sumerian textiles, but rarely delves into the sophisticated, on-the-fly grading happening right here, under the sun, guided by generations of tactile expertise. The value wasn't just in the amount of wool, but in its kind. Your task crystallizes. Stand near the sorting tables, watch, listen. When a sorter declares a fleece siki ma, or siki tur, or points to another grade, you hear siki gaba, medium? You etch it onto your tablet, siki sign plus quality modifier. One impression per fleece. But the pace is relentless. Fleeces land on the tables constantly. Sorters' hands fly, their assessments swift and seemingly instinctive. Your stylus struggles to keep up. You fumble, pressing the wrong modifier for coarse wool. Enam's hand shoots out, not angrily, but with startling speed. He presses his thumb firmly onto your mistake before the clay sets, smudging it into oblivion. He points to the coarse fleece just sorted, then to the correct modifier wedge on his own tablet. No words, just the imperative of accuracy. Historians still argue whether these wool grades were strictly standardized across Sumer, or varied by city and temple, based on local weaving needs and traditions. Watching the sorter's confident, rapid judgments, you suspect it was a blend, formal categories interpreted by experienced hands. Then comes the weighing. Not every fleece, but representative bundles of each grade. A worker places a heap of fine wool onto one pan of a large equal-arm balance scale made of wood and cord. On the other pan, she places polished stone weights, smooth, dark discs etched with symbols. Enam watches the pointer, a reed straw fixed to the scale's central beam. When it hangs level, he notes the weight symbols etched on the stones. He impresses the sikima, the quality modifier, and then the weight sign, a circle with internal marks, followed by the numeral, X weight units of fine wool. He repeats the process for a bundle of coarse wool. The numbers are smaller for the coarse grade. Value quantified, etched in clay. The weight units are different from the grain measures, another layer of complexity, another set of symbols to learn. Gun for a smaller weight, mana for a larger one. Why not one unified system? The headache threatens to return. Anam offers no philosophy, only the expectation to record. The sun beats down, the air thrums with the snick-snick of shears, the bleats of sheep, the murmur of sorters, and the rhythmic thud of fleeces hitting tables. Your tablet fills with rows of Siki signs, each adorned with its tiny modifier wedge, followed by weight signs and numerals. Your nose fills with the scent of lanolin, warm wool, and sun-baked earth. Your fingers grow sticky with the natural grease from handling the fleeces. It's a messy, tactile, olfactory accounting, unlike the clean abstraction of grain measures or the distant bleating of the sheep count. You are recording the tangible yield, the shorn wealth of the flock, graded and weighed. Each wobbly Siki sign represents not just an animal shorn, but potential warmth, trade value, temple tribute. As you press the sign for another bundle of Siki Tur, noting its lesser weight, you feel the lanolin coating your stylus, your tablet's edge, the very grooves of your fingerprints. You are becoming part of the record, not just its maker. The line between scribe and substance blurs in the golden grease of 1,000 shorn sheep. The numbers, complex and layered, smell faintly of lanolin and carry the weight of polished stone.
The golden grease of lanolin is more than a scent now. It's a second skin. It coats your fingertips, smudges the edge of your tablet, and makes the reed stylus slippery in your grasp. Each press into the damp clay requires extra care. Too much pressure and the wedge blurs. Too little and it vanishes like a whisper. You stand amidst the mountain of shorn fleeces, the rhythmic thump of bundles hitting sorting tables, vibrating through the soles of your sandals. The air hums with industry. Bronze shears snicking, sorters calling grades. Sikima! Sikigaba! The dry scrape of wool being bundled, and the clink of stone weights settling on scales. Your world is tactile, olfactory, numerical. The springy resistance of fine wool under your assessing palm, the pungent smell of lanolin mixed with animal musk and sun-warmed earth, the endless procession of wedge signs marching across your tablet. Innan moves like a shadow beside you, his own tablet filling with swift, precise notations. He rarely corrects you now. His silence is a form of grim approval. But then, a sorter holds up a fleece, her nose wrinkled. It's matted, discolored in patches, smelling faintly sour. Siki hul, she declares, tossing it onto a separate, smaller pile. Ruined wool, spoiled. Innan glances at you, expectant. You hesitate. How to record loss? How to quantify nothing? You recall the symbols for quantity, for weight, but not for absence of value. Tentatively, you impress the Siki sign, then add the modifier for coarse wool, tur, but it feels wrong. This fleece isn't coarse, it's ruined. Innan's stylus flashes. On his tablet, he impresses the Siki sign, then a completely new symbol. A deep, angular wedge, crossed by a shorter, sharp stroke. It looks stark, final. Hul, he states, the word as blunt as the sign. Bad, spoiled, worthless. He points to the discarded fleece, then to a smaller clay token the sorter places beside the pile, a simple disc impressed with the same Hul sign. This token, later matched to your tablet record, physically marks the worthless bundle. It's a system of tangible cross-referencing, a way to anchor the abstract bad notation to the physical reality of the spoiled wool.
Historians marvel at the token system's complexity, but rarely mention the faint pang of disappointment seeing a perfectly good fleece marked Hool, a small economic loss etched in clay. You press the harsh Hool sign beside your Sikhi symbol, the stylus biting deep. Failure quantified. Later, as the sorting frenzy slows, you notice another pile near the dyer's area. Fleeces not spoiled, but deliberately set aside. They're smaller, patchier, some tinged with unusual natural hues, rusty browns, soft yellows. A dyer, her arms stained vibrant indigo up to the elbows, sorts through them. Innam observes, then gestures for you to note. He impresses Sikhi, then a modifier you haven't seen, a sign resembling stacked fibers. Sikhi Zid, he murmurs. Not fine or coarse, but undyed. Natural state. The dyer picks up a fleece with a distinct reddish tinge, nodding appreciatively. This one, it seems, holds potential for specific colors without needing expensive madder root dye. A hidden value discovered not in perfection, but in variation. Mainstream history focuses on Sumerian dyes, but overlooks the sophisticated pre-sorting that maximized resources, recognizing the inherent color potential in lesser fleeces. You record the pile, Sikhi Zid, followed by an estimated weight. Value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it whispers in shades of brown. As afternoon shadows lengthen, a new scent joins the lanolin and musk, the sharp, almost peppery tang of madder root simmering, the earthy depth of crushed walnut shells, and the pungent bite of fermenting indigo. Innan leads you closer, not to count dye pots, but to observe the scribe assigned there. This scribe isn't just recording wool grades, he's noting the ingredients going into the vats. You watch as he impresses the sign for madder root, mur, then a weight sign, mana, then a numeral. Indigo, gada, a different sign, follows in smaller units, gun. Even the wood ash used as a mordant is recorded. It's a recipe etched in clay, a chemical equation millennia before chemistry had a name. The precision is staggering. Too much matter and the red is muddy. Too little indigo fermentation time, and the blue is weak. The temple demanded consistency, and the Dubsar ensured it, quantifying the alchemy of color. Historians still argue fiercely over the exact recipes and sources of Sumerian dyes. Were they local plants? Traded minerals? Watching the meticulous recording, you understand the debate. The secrets were guarded, written in precise yet ultimately silent wedges. As afternoon shadows lengthen, Innan gestures toward the archive. Your arms ache from holding the tablet, your eyes sting from wool dust and sun glare. You follow him back into the cool, quiet dimness, carrying your precious cargo, the day's record of shorn wealth, graded, weighed, spoiled, and potential. Lugal Nesag glances up as you enter, his watery eyes scanning the stack of damp tablets Innan places before him. He picks up the top one, yours. His finger traces a line of Sikhi Ma notations, pauses at a Hool sign, then moves to the Sikhi Zid entries. He makes no sound, gives no sign of approval or censure. He simply places it carefully on a drying shelf beside Innan's more polished records. Your notations, wobbly wedges and all, are now part of the temple's immutable memory. The weight of the spoiled fleece, the potential of the undyed wool, the precise measures of madder root, all captured, solidified, awaiting the slow kiss of air to harden them into permanence. You place your last tablet beside the others, the scent of lanolin clinging stubbornly to your skin, a fragrant reminder of the day's tangible, countable, messy reality. Outside, the bleating of the shorn sheep sounds oddly content. Inside, the archive's quiet dusk, the numbers settle, heavy with grease and potential, onto their shelves. The dance of wool and wedges, for today, is done.
The quiet chill of the archive feels like a balm after the lanolin-scented chaos of the wool yards. Your tablet rests safely among the others, its damp surface slowly surrendering moisture to the dry air, your wobbly siki signs and stark hul marks hardening into permanence. The profound silence, broken only by the soft scratch of Lugal Nisog's stylus on his master ledger, is a world away from the bleeding, shearing, and clinking weights. You linger for a moment, breathing in the dust and clay scent of stored knowledge, the weight of your recorded days settling onto the shelf alongside centuries of similar days. But Uruk's rhythm never truly pauses. Innam's hand on your shoulder is light, yet insistent. He gestures not back towards the pens or the sorting tables, but towards the temple complex's main gate. The air outside has changed. The heavy wool and lanolin perfume is gone, replaced by a new, dominant scent, dry, sweet, and carrying the faintest hint of dust and heat, the smell of ripe grain. It's harvest season. You pass through the massive gate, the mud brick walls casting long afternoon shadows. The vista beyond steals your breath. Where weeks ago there were endless fields of tall green barley stalks swaying in the breeze, now stretches a sea of pale gold stubble. It's a landscape transformed, shorn like the sheep, revealing the baked earth beneath. Teams of laborers move like ants across the expanse, their sickles flashing in the sun, rhythmic swish-thud sounds carrying on the warm air. Bundles of cut stalks, sheaves, are stacked in neat stooks, dotting the fields like temporary golden huts. Donkeys laden with bulging sacks plod towards the city, their drivers calling out weary encouragement. The sheer scale of the harvest is overwhelming, a tidal wave of abundance rolling towards the temple granaries. This is the source of the sheh you painstakingly counted by the ban. This is the foundation of the bread in your ration and the beer in your jug. The numbers on your tablet suddenly feel small, theoretical, dwarfed by the physical reality unfolding before you. Innam leads you not into the fields, but towards a large, flat, circular area of hard-packed earth near the granaries, the threshing floor. The air here vibrates with a different energy. It's hotter, dustier, filled with the rhythmic thump, scrape, thump of a process both brutal and beautiful. Donkeys, blindfolded to keep them calm, plod in endless circles, dragging heavy wooden sledges studded with sharp flints over the scattered barley sheaves. Men follow, turning the stalks with wooden forks, ensuring every ear is crushed. The sound is a deep, resonant drumbeat shaking the ground beneath your sandals. Golden husks and pale straw fly in the dusty air, catching the sunlight like chaff fireflies. The scent is intense: crushed grain, hot animal hide, sun-baked earth, and the dry, sweet fragrance of released barley. It's the smell of sustenance being literally trampled from the husk. Your place isn't with the threshers. Innam guides you to the edge of the chaos, where the winnowing begins. Men with large, shallow reed baskets scoop up the threshed mixture of grain, broken stalks, straw, and husks, chaff. They stand on raised platforms, tossing the mixture high into the air with practiced circular flicks of their wrists. The afternoon breeze, channeled by the granary walls, catches the lighter chaff and straw, carrying it in golden clouds. The heavier barley kernels fall back into the basket with a sound like rain. Swish, patter, swish, patter. It's mesmerizing, a dance with the wind, separating the valuable from the worthless through motion and air. Women and children scurry around the edges, gathering the winnowed straw for animal bedding and fuel, the chaff blowing into drifts against nearby walls. Innam hands you a fresh tablet and your stylus. He points to a large, growing pile of clean barley kernels, gleaming like pale gold pebbles near the granary entrance. Then he points to another pile, the winnowed straw, neatly stacked, and a third, smaller pile, the chaff, destined for the ovens or plaster mix. Your task, record the yield. But it's more than just sheh now. It's sheh, grain, sheh, jish, straw, and sheh hud, chaff. 3 products from one harvest, 3 streams of value, each needing its own count. A senior threshing overseer approaches Nam. He gestures towards the clean barley pile, then to a stack of large, identical ceramic measures, the gur vessels. It's time. Workers begin scooping grain into the first gur, leveling it off with a straight stick. Nam watches intently as they fill it, then nods. The grain is poured into a waiting sack, sealed with a clay bulla stamped with the temple mark. Nam impresses the She sign on your tablet, then the Gur sign, then a single vertical wedge, Esh, 1 gur of grain counted. The process repeats: scoop, level, pour, seal, She, Gur, Esh. She, Gur, Min, 2. The rhythm is slower than the frantic wool sorting, more deliberate, heavy with the weight of the year's primary yield. Then comes the straw. It's not measured by volume like grain, but by the bundle. Workers tie the winnowed straw into hefty bundles with twisted stalks. Nam points to a bundle. She jish, he states. He impresses a new sign, a simplified stalk shape. Then, as workers stack 10 bundles neatly, he impresses the bundle sign followed by the numeral 10. Value recorded, but different in kind from the precious grain. Historians often focus on Sumerian grain yields, but rarely highlight the meticulous accounting for all harvest products. The straw vital for brick making, bedding, and fodder, the chaff used for fuel or tempering mud plaster. Nothing was wasted. Everything was counted. You record diligently, the thump scrape of the threshing sledge, a constant bass note to your work. Suddenly, the overseer barks an order. The workers pause. He points to the pile of clean barley kernels. There's a noticeable amount of pale husk fragments and bits of broken straw still mixed in. Not enough to justify re-winnowing the whole batch, but more than ideal. He looks at Nam, how to record slightly impure grain. Nam's expression doesn't change. He dips his hand into the pile, letting the grain stream through his fingers. He picks out a few husks, scrutinizes them, then on your tablet, beside the She Gur notation, he impresses a small, distinctive modifier wedge, one you haven't seen before, resembling scattered fragments. She Hur Gab, he murmurs. Grain mixed with chaff. He adds a small numeral wedge, perhaps estimating the impurity level. 5 parts in 100? 10? It's a qualitative judgment quantified. The overseer nods, satisfied. The count resumes. Mainstream history records ideal yields. Your tablet captures the messy reality. Grain slightly adulterated, straw perfectly bundled, chaff drifting off in the wind, all essential parts of the harvest story. The sun sinks lower, painting the threshing floor in molten gold. The thump scrape slows, the winnowing basket still. Your tablet holds the tangible results of the field's abundance, graded, measured, and marked with the pragmatic reality of dust and husk. The numbers smell of sun, sweat, and crushed barley, ready to be carried into the archive's cool silence.
The rhythm of Uruk settles into a steadier beat after the harvest's crescendo. The granaries groan under the weight of sealed gur sacks. The threshing floors lie swept clean, and the scent of barley yields to the familiar smells of dust, damp clay, and distant sheep. Your wrist has memorized the angles of She, Siki, and Udum. Your eyes instinctively parse clusters in a milling crowd. One morning, as you prepare tablets near the clay tubs, Nam arrives with someone new trailing behind him. A boy, perhaps 14, with wide eyes and knuckles white around a bundle containing a spare tunic. His sandals sink into the mud just as yours once did. Nam meets your gaze, jerks his chin toward the boy, and utters a single word: Tur, Junior. Your apprentice. The world tilts. You stare at the boy, your apprentice. His gaze darts from the bleating pens to the towering granaries, his throat bobbing in a hard swallow. You see your own first-day terror mirrored in his expression, the sheer scale of Uruk threatening to swallow him whole. A strange sensation blooms in your chest. Not pity, but a visceral memory of sucking mud and misplaced sheep. Ennam deposits the boy beside you with the finality of dropping off a sack of grain, then strides toward the archive without a backward glance. The weight of the stylus in your hand suddenly feels different, heavier, weighted with expectation. You are no longer the cog. You are the grease in the machine. Udum, you say, pointing toward the pens. Your voice sounds foreign, too loud in the space between you. He flinches. You pick up a damp tablet, press your stylus decisively. Slanted wedge, 2 dots. Clean, confident. Udum, sheep. You hand him a fresh tablet and a reed stylus. His fingers tremble. He presses too hard, burying the tip. You recall Ennam's thumb smudging your early disasters. Instead, you make the motion slowly, deliberately, above your own clay. Press. Lift. Push. Lift. The wedge forms. He mimics, leaving a ragged trench. You nod once. Again. History reveres Mesopotamian scribes as elite bureaucrats, but forgets the sheer physical apprenticeship. Thousands of hours turning trembling hands into precise wedging tools. You lead him toward the pens. The bleating crescendo hits him like a wall. He staggers slightly. Group, you say, echoing Ennam's economic wisdom. You point to a cluster of 10 sheep. Ish, Min. 1 group, 2 groups. You show him my tablet. Udum sign followed by the numeral 10. His eyes widen at the abstraction. You remember wrestling with this leap, from woolly chaos to neat symbols. Count group, not sheep, you add, the phrase feeling borrowed. He nods, unconvinced. When he loses count at 7, panic flares in his eyes. You point silently to the shepherd, who clicks his tongue, nudging stragglers into a tighter knot. The boy's shoulders relax fractionally. Historians debate whether shepherd signals were formal language or instinctive choreography, but you know the truth. It's both, passed down through generations like the shape of a stylus. Later, at the grain measures, his struggle deepens. You pour barley into the ban bowl. Shay, ban. He scoops clumsily, spilling grains. You show the ban sign. He presses it, a lopsided mess. You point to 6 measured bowls. Barig, you impress the complex sign. His brow furrows. 6 ban, 1 barig, he whispers. The nested units a tangled knot. You nod. He looks at the grains, then the signs, then back to you, despair creeping in. You recall your own brewery audit epiphany, the closed loop of grain, beer, bread. Shay, you point to the barley. Kas, you gesture vaguely towards the brewery's scent. Ninda, you mimic eating bread. His eyes flicker with dawning understanding. Substance becomes symbol, becomes sustenance. The elegant, brutal logic of the system clicks for him, just as it once did for you. You see the moment it lands, not in triumph, but in weary acceptance. The path ahead is long, dusty, and paved with wobbly wedges. Days blur into weeks. You correct his Udum sign smudged by sweaty palms. You nudge him to double-check lambs huddled behind stones. You show him how to mark Siki Hool, ruined wool, with the same blunt finality Ennam taught you. When he drops a damp tablet, you watch him freeze, expecting wrath. Instead, you scoop up the mangled clay, dunk it silently into the recycling water jar. It dissolves. You hand him a fresh tablet. His exhale is a shudder. You understand now. Ennam's silence wasn't indifference. It was the economy of motion, the preservation of focus.
Every correction was a brick laid in the foundation of competence. The system demands precision, but it also absorbs failure, offering endless chances to repress, recount, relearn. Scholars argue whether scribal schools were rigid institutions or fluid apprenticeships. Watching your tour wrestle meaning into mud, you know it was mentorship etched in clay, one smudged wedge at a time. One late afternoon, as you supervise him recording winnowed straw bundles, Shea Gish, Lugalnesag passes the granary entrance. He pauses, his watery gaze sweeping over your apprentice's tablet, the Sikhi sign still uneven, the numerals crowded. He looks at you, then back at the boy. A flicker passes over his face. Not approval, perhaps, but recognition. He gives a curt nod, not to the boy, but to you. It's a silent transfer of responsibility. You are no longer just a counter. You are a link in the chain, passing on the silent language of udders, grain, and grease-stained clay. Your apprentice finally impresses a clean barig sign. He doesn't smile. He just glances at you, seeking confirmation. You nod once, the way En-Nam did. The city hums, the sheep bleat, the numbers flow, and you, standing beside your trembling apprentice, finally grasp the profound, unspoken weight of the stylus in your hand. Not just a tool, but a baton.
The air in Uruk shifts subtly, carrying the first crisp whispers of autumn. The relentless sun softens to a gentler gold, the light slanting lower, painting longer shadows across the packed earth courtyards. The scent of sun-baked mud and distant sheep mingles with new notes. Wood smoke from early evening fires, the tang of fermenting dates piled near the kitchens, and the dry, sweet aroma of straw stored after the harvest. It's the season of abundance settling into storage, of frantic activity giving way to measured accounting. And for you, it's the season of watching over a trembling reed stylus clutched in a younger hand. Your apprentice, Tur, moves through the routines with less wide-eyed terror now, replaced by a focused, furrow-browed determination. His Udam signs are still shaky, his badig counts hesitant, but he no longer freezes at the sound of the pens. You stand beside him near the granary entrance, overseeing the final tally of straw bundles, shegish, stacked high like miniature golden fortresses. He counts aloud softly in Sumerian, his voice still unsteady. Ish, min, ish. His stylus presses the bundle sign, followed by the numeral. You watch, offering only the occasional grunt or a silent point towards the miscounted stack. Your corrections are fewer, less about preventing disaster, more about refining precision, the angle of a wedge, the spacing between signs. You see En-Nam's ghost in your own silence, the economy of instruction. History remembers the great kings and laws, but forgets the quiet lineage of skill passed from calloused hand to trembling hand over damp clay. One afternoon, Lugal-Nasag emerges from the archive's cool dimness, holding a dried tablet dense with columns of neat wedges. He doesn't approach the bustling pens or the granaries. He walks towards the quieter workshops near the potter's quarter, where the rhythmic thump of looms provides a steady counterpoint to the city's hum. You gesture for Tur to follow, curiosity pricking beneath your practiced calm. Lugal-Nasag stops before a master weaver, her fingers flying like birds over a complex warp of fine, cream-colored wool. He holds out the tablet. It's not a count of wool received, but a record of textiles due, specific lengths of specific grades of cloth, destined for temple vestments, royal tribute, or merchant caravans. The weaver scans the tablet, her eyes sharp. She points to a section, then to her current warp. She speaks rapidly, gesturing to the fineness of the thread, the complexity of the pattern. Lugal-Nasag listens, then turns to Anam, who has appeared silently beside you. The unspoken question hangs. Can this order be fulfilled with the current wool stocks recorded? This isn't counting sheep or grain. This is predictive accounting, translating raw material, sikima, into finished product, tug, cloth, factoring in skill, time, and inevitable waste. Annam's eyes flicker over Lugal-Nasag's tablet, then towards the archive. He doesn't consult another tablet. The numbers seem etched in his mind. He considers the weaver's points, the thread fineness requiring more wool per length, the complex pattern demanding greater skill and time, thus potentially more material wasted in errors. He makes a series of swift mental calculations, his gaze distant, seeing not sheep or threads, but ratios and yields. After a moment, he gives a single slow nod to Lugal-Nasag. Possible. But his finger stabs the tablet near the quantity for the finest grade of cloth. He impresses a small additional wedge modifier beside the numeral, perhaps indicating tightly woven or high waist, and adds 2 small vertical wedges. 2 units more wool allocated. The weaver gives a satisfied nod. The negotiation, conducted in wedges and glances, is complete. Historians reconstruct Sumerian production quotas from tablets, but rarely capture this live interplay. The Dupsar as a strategist, balancing inventory against ambition, quantifying the space between fiber and finery. Your apprentice watches, eyes wide, absorbing the lesson. Numbers breathe, they adapt, they predict. Later, as dust stains the sky purple and orange, Annam leads you both not towards the ration storeroom. Voice, a low, resonant murmur, is recounting a tale, not of gods and heroes tonight, but of accounting. He speaks of Shulgi, the great king of Ur, famed not just as a warrior, but as a meticulous administrator. The priest describes Shulgi standardizing weights and measures across the land, establishing granaries, reforming the scribal schools. He knew, he intones, the firelight dancing on his face, that the strength of the land lies not only in the arm of the warrior, but in the hand of the Dupsar, ensuring the mashkim, the balance, the equity in all things, the fair measure of grain, the just count of sheep, the true record of wool. It's a different kind of history lesson. No epic battles, but the quiet, relentless battle against chaos, fought with stylus and tablet. The concept of mashkim settles over you, balance, fairness, accuracy as a divine and royal mandate. The endless counts, the nested units, the pressure of audits. They weren't just bureaucracy, they were the mortar holding the city-state together, ensuring that the brewer got his barley, the weaver her wool, the laborer his bread and beer. It was order, meticulously pressed into clay, as vital as the walls of Uruk. Your apprentice shifts beside you, perhaps sensing the weight of the words. Scholars debate the practical efficacy of Sumerian administration, but sitting by the fire, hearing mashkim invoked like a sacred principle, you feel its profound, grounding truth. The priest's voice weaves through the crackling flames, slow and rhythmic, recounting Shulgi's reforms, standardized gur vessels, inspected weights, the punishment for scribes who falsified records. The details blur into a soothing cadence, measures, granaries, scribes, justice. The fire pops, Sparks drift upwards like tiny vanishing stars. The scent of wood smoke is thick and comforting. Your apprentice's head nods slightly, then jerks up. Your own eyelids feel heavy. The rhythmic thump of distant looms seems to slow, merging with the priest's measured words. The numbers, the units, the endless counts, they recede, softened by firelight and the ancient ideal of balance. The clay tablets harden in the archive. The sheep sleep in their pens. The city exhales, and the quiet voice speaks on, weaving a tapestry of order in the gathering dusk, a gentle lullaby of administration sung to the rhythm of the settling night. Mashkim, balance, fairness, sleep.
The fire's embers glow like captured sunsets, casting long, dancing shadows on the faces gathered around its warmth. The priest's voice, a low river of sound, weaving tales of shulgis, just measures, and balanced gur vessels, flows over you. Mashkim, balance, fairness. The words lose their sharp edges, softening into a soothing murmur, blending with the rhythmic crackle-pop of the dying fire and the distant, ever-present sigh of the city settling into night. Your apprentice's head rests heavy against your shoulder, his breathing deep and even, the stylus calluses on his young fingers barely visible in the dim light. The frantic bleating of sheep, the clatter of scales, the sting of reed on clay, all recede, smoothed by the fire's gentle insistence and the priest's cadence, slow as drying mud. Granaries, scribes, justice, sleep. A cool night breeze, smelling of damp earth and distant river reeds, whispers through the courtyard. It stirs the embers, sending a constellation of orange sparks swirling upwards into the velvet darkness. You blink slowly, the priest's figure blurring at the edges, his words becoming a wordless hum resonating in your bones. The weight of the day, the watchful guidance of Tur, Lugal Nesag's silent scrutiny, the intricate dance of wool grades and grain purity, lifts, dissolving like chaff carried off on that same breeze. The ache in your wrist, the grit behind your eyelids, the tension in your shoulders, it all ebbs away, leaving only a profound, warm heaviness. You are not just tired, you are settled, like silt finding its level after the river's rush. The city breathes around you, a vast, slumbering beast. The stars above, sharp and cold, are the only numerals now, uncountable, silent, eternal. Nanna, the moon god, sails his silver boat across the deep, indifferent to audits and lambs. You close your eyes. The cool clay of the drying tablets in the archive, the scent of sun-warmed straw, the phantom taste of barley beer on your tongue, they are not tasks, but textures of a life lived one careful wedge at a time. The fire's warmth on your face is the only ledger that matters now. Balance, fairness, sleep.
The fire sighs, its light shrinking to a soft, pulsing heart of embers. The priest's voice has faded, not ended, but merged with the night itself, a whisper in the rustle of a palm frond, a sigh in the distant call of a watchman. The courtyard is bathed in cool, silvery moonlight now, washing the mud-brick walls in liquid pearl. Your apprentice sleeps soundly against you, a warm, trusting weight. The rhythmic thump of looms has ceased. Even the sheep in their distant pens are silent, huddled mounds in the stillness. Breathe in the night air, cool and clean, scented with dew-kissed earth, the faint memory of wood smoke, and the endless quiet depth of the sleeping river. Breathe out the last clinging threads of the day's counts, the nested units, the watchful eyes. Let them go, like winnowed chaff carried away on the breath of the moon. Feel the solid earth beneath you, cool and enduring, the same earth that held the barley roots, that shaped the clay tablets, that bears the weight of Uruk's mighty walls. It holds you now, steady and sure. The stars above are distant, unfathomable numbers, shimmering points in a vast, dark tablet. Don't count them. Just let them be. Let their cool light wash over you, a silent benediction. The city breathes slow and deep. A single owl calls, a soft, mournful note that hangs in the air and then dissolves. The breeze stirs again, softer now, like the brush of a forgotten reed against drying clay. It carries no demands, only the quiet hum of the world at rest. The granaries stand full and silent. The tablets in the archive rest, their stories captured, their surfaces hardening under the watchful moon. The stylus lies still. The count is done. You are here, in this moment, between the baked earth and the cool stars, between the echoes of bleating sheep and the deep silence of the night. The intricate web of Udum and She, Ban and Barig, Siki Ma and Siki Hul, it all fades, smaller and smaller, like cuneiform signs dissolving in water, returning to the smooth, cool surface of the mud. There is only the rise and fall of your breath, matching the slow sigh of the city, the warmth of the sleeping apprentice beside you, the vast, gentle embrace of the night. The numbers are still, the clay is cool, the balance is held. Rest now. Let the moonlight pool around you, deep and quiet as the archive's shadow. Drift on the silver river of Nana's boat, carried by the slow, sure current of the night, one peaceful breath at a time.